Hello, hello. Dukes, dukes, dukes. What up, Dexter? Hello.
Hi, Pawi.
I'm,
Hi.
gonna, I'm just gonna take a photo of this. Welcome to Rappler. We're live right now on all channels. Well, all channels where Rappler is and has live video. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Call a friend, phone a friend. We have an exciting interview ahead. But before we get into that, Dexter, I'm gonna let you have the floor first. Why don't you tell our audience how they can keep up with Orbit X, where they can follow you, and maybe if you want to give a few shout outs while I post our lovely photo on my Instagram.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on the show, first of all. But you can follow OrbitX or visit OrbitX at www.orbitalexploration.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at Aliens of Malaya. That's one of our projects right now. And also, you
Ooh.
can find us on Facebook and also LinkedIn. So, I would like to give a shout out to the team members of OrbitX, the engineering team, the executive team, the board, the investors. I would like to give a shout out to my interns and also um,
Ah,
to
interns.
Avian, and also to my best friends from Team Grind. So
There you go.
thank you so much.
Lots of support. Dexter, do you have a personal IG? I tagged Orbit X.
No, we don't have an IG, unfortunately, but I have my
Oh,
own
okay.
IG account.
What's your
Yeah,
IG account?
Dex Spaceman at Dex Spaces.
Dex Spaceman. Ooh, if that wasn't a hint already as to the lengths we're going in today's interview, then buckle up, folks. This is gonna be a good one. Dexter, I'm gonna kick things off right now. Hello, everyone, wherever you're watching from. This is Hustle Inside the Industry, where we talk to professionals and find out how they got here, why they're doing what they do, and what it takes to do it. We're live right here on all Raptor channels, including Kumu. If you're streaming us on Kumu, please join in on the conversation. You can send over some questions or some diamonds if you like what you hear. Diamonds are a podcast host's best friend, by the way. If you didn't know that, that's a song that I just made up right now. And if you're not yet on Kumu, you can download the app, and when you do, make sure to follow Rappler.com. That's Rappler DOTCOM. You can also play this interview back in podcast form. Just follow Hustle Inside the Industry on Spotify or any podcast platform. This episode comes out next Monday, December 13th. As always, this is Pawi from Rappler's Hustle Team, and I'm here to talk about, or rather, learn about something completely foreign to me: outer space and how to get there. So we've seen the privatization of space exploration over recent years. It's even in popular culture with the likes of Virgin Galactic and SpaceX in the US. But many of us might have never imagined any such endeavors brewing here in the Philippines. Well, one particular group of young individuals has been working hard to launch the Philippines' first rocket into space. Wow. But not only that, they aim to do so using renewable energy. Double wow. I'm talking about Orbit X. And if what I've said so far didn't sound ambitious enough, well, stay on the stream because there's a lot more. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because here to walk us through it all, we have the co founder and CEO of Orbit X, Dexter Baño. Welcome to the show, Dexter. Hello.
Hi again. Thank you so much, Pawi and Rappler. It's been I think more than a year since I was featured in mainstream media. The last time was with
Ooh.
ABS-CBN News Channel. So
Oh,
yeah,
brilliant.
thank you so much for
Better
having me.
times. Oh no, a year ago was still pandemic. I imagine you would have grown a beard between them, or maybe you shaved between
Yeah,
them
yes.
before.
All types of
Um,
hair, probably.
there you there you go. Well, actually, this is a side question because it's relevant, maybe irrelevant. How old are you, by the way, Dexter?
Well, I'm only 24 years old, so yeah,
Oh my gosh, boy
I'm too
genius,
young.
boy genius. Here we come. So anyway, all right. So Dexter, let's let's say I met you at a socially distanced coffee shop, and I asked you, "Hey, dude, what is Orbit X? What do you do?" How would you explain it?
I consider Orbitex first as probably the craziest venture here in the Philippines right now. Primarily, we are engaged into the development of a lot of deep technologies. We are registered here in the Philippines and also in the United States. So, despite having our focus in the development of Haribon SLS, or the Space Launch System for the Philippines, we are also focused into renewables, like what you said. And we have other projects also involving, environment, and also the blockchain industry.
That's I told you, right? That's what I said, everybody. Like, this is a jam-packed episode. It's basically a 3 in 1. If that didn't tickle your taste buds enough, you can always ask. You can always send over some questions in the comments. We love those. Or if you wanna get a shout out from Filipino Elon Musk over here. No, I'm just kidding. Um, so anyway, you did mention the Haribon SLS, which I believe is your flagship project. It's the name of the rocket that we talked about earlier, right? So why don't you walk us through what exactly it means to be like the first renewable rocket, like in the most basic elementary science? How would this renewable rocket work?
Well, let's go back a little in history. We
Hmm.
started the organization way back 2019, and back then we are composed of very, very young team. Then later on, as the time goes by, prior to the pandemic, it became matured. Engineers came in, or licensed engineers came in, and also advisors, especially from abroad. So, to be honest, building a rocket is not new in the Philippines. We have
Okay,
university-based projects, but this is the first time that it is being commercially done. So, and also it is the first time, probably also in the industry, that we are considering the development of um, a renewable fuel powered
it's
rocket
crazy.
system. So it is really, to be honest, it is hard. And considering that we had, or we are having currently our global pandemic due to COVID-19, so
Oh,
we need to
yeah.
become lean, and we need to cope up with the demands and become more creative, considering that we can do that since we are exploring other industries as well.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm glad you gave us like the overview. I might want to dissect some of those pieces later, but you mentioned you kind of mentioned your humble beginnings of the company. I want to take it back to your personal humble beginnings. Your own background into this field. If our co-host Tristan were here, shout out to Tristan, by the way. Feel better. If you were here, he would call it your origin story, right? Like in the comics, because you are kind of like a superhero. We don't guest villains, by the way, so that's why I specified. We Raptor doesn't support supervillains, not yet at least. Tell us how you first got into aeronautics, if that's the right umbrella term. How you first got into this idea of like space exploration, and how did you cultivate that passion?
Well, like any other kid, I am. My first ambition or dream in life is to become an astronaut. But unfortunately, my mother told me that it is not the most realistic ambition here in the Philippines back then, way back then. So I never gave up on the dream of going to space. But this time, I consider on bringing the country to space commercially. So um, uh, I'm originally a founder of a successful startup team before this, and we are
Okay.
focused more into um, food technologies. Primarily, we are designing advanced foods for probably survival operations, especially if you
Wow.
are having an emergency, things like that. So
Sorry, can you
um,
give me an example of that? That's very interesting.
yeah, we created a concoction of ingredients wherein we studied it and we tried to commercialize it as well. Um, so yeah, we created a concoction of ingredients and tried to come up with a product that can allow you to survive within a day
Mm,
without any other food intake.
Yeah.
So
Maybe for
we
like
approach.
military use or like
Yes, yes,
emergency.
exactly.
Interesting.
So we
Wow.
approach DOST-FNRI, DOST-ITDI back then, and we successfully exited the organization way back 2019 before I
Oh,
started this organization.
wow. But in terms of, okay, so like sticking to the space stuff, but that stuff is kind of relevant because I'm
Yes.
sure like astronauts have very all sorts of interesting
Yeah, well, it
food.
is
Yeah.
kind of connected considering that we are studying the materials being used in space.
Hmm.
For example, the packaging, the methodology, and technologies that they're using for space food preparation. If they are
Hmm.
bringing ration to the International Space Station, we also studied the technology behind it. So while we are doing our R&D back then for my first startup organization,
Hmm.
um, we use those methodologies and materials. So
Right.
yeah,
You're like
that's actually
planting the
my first.
seeds.
Yes, that's actually my first preparation with regards to basic operations and how I handle
Oh,
manufacturing, things like that. So
wow. Yeah, you're really because we're gonna get into like the multifaceted nature of Orbit X, but it looks like you yourself are a polymath of sorts. But just to dig in a bit deeper, you talked about studying such techniques. How exactly did you kind of pick up this knowledge? Was What was your ratio, I guess, of like learning these particular fields in school versus independent study, and how did you and your team independently study and develop this acumen really?
well, I can consider that for my first startup, it is purely independent study. But with regards to the operation side of it, the business side of it, we learned it, due to our professional um, um, nature as business people. So with regards to the product development, we are more onto self study and also consulting to professionals that are actually better than us with regards to
Hmm.
food development or food technology. So
Hmm.
it is actually similar to what we're doing right now, even though we have experts and licensed engineers. We also constantly reach out to our advisors from abroad in order for us to
Oh, I
you know
see.
minimize
Interesting.
the risk and mistakes that we might
Yeah.
went through.
Yeah, I think yeah, and I think what you're hinting at is like the idea of mentorship, right? And I think we're gonna dig more into that. Let's talk about Orbit X now. So again, you had a company prior to this. You have I guess Orbit X is maybe your second enterprise. Tell us how that started. How did you assemble this band of merry men and women, and kind of uh pull together this shared passion for bringing Filipino technology into space.
Well, actually, Orbitex started as originally a non-profit organization concept. Then one of the business mentors of mine told me that why not try to commercialize your idea and probably grind to the top. So upon seeing the possibility and the opportunity behind it, I personally decided to try to reach out to social media and pitch. The initial idea behind Orbitex is to create a jet fueled engine, jet engine fueled by RJ fuel. So
LJ.
our
Yeah.
yes, then
Wow.
the entire project or the entire ecosystem evolved from there, and yeah, originally we are composed of mostly student researchers, but now we are more matured and leaning more into more technical stuff and more professional way of doing the engineering side of the rocket development.
Were you classmates per se, or you just all happen to be students with shared interest?
No, actually they are not my classmates.
Wow.
Yes.
Cool.
I started building my probably my um, personal brand way back 2018 when I got featured in Business Mirror. So that's the reason why when I decided to start OrbitX way back 2019, uh, I it became easy to me to get people on board. So
Wow.
yeah,
Like you said, the social media, right? You kind of put out a
yes,
call
it
out.
is really powerful. Like what I am always telling to the people that I talk to, or the probably the interns of mine. You need to build your personal brand at the same time. You need to network to people because it is really
Hmm.
important for your professional journey and your dreams to have people to back you up in case you need something to you know um, talk to, or you need some advice. So it's very,
Hmm.
very important.
Wow. And now you're on Rappler. There you go. And
Yes, yes.
and now
Yeah,
you can use this appearance to leverage, and then next thing you know,
yeah,
OrbitX
for
is
sure.
just like the biggest company thanks to you talking with Powie for an hour. I'm just kidding. Anyway, just a reminder to everyone, you can send over your questions in the comments or wherever if you're on Kumu. Hopefully some VGs, especially if you like what you hear, virtual gifts, aka diamonds. Um, also on that note, just now, hey, for those of you out there who might have an interesting business or something cool that you think might fit the show, or if you know any friends who fit the bill, then mention them in the comments. We're always looking to crowdsource and see who else is out there, right? So going back to Dexter and OrbitX over here. Okay, this is I feel like what I'm most curious about, which is the state of the local scene and industry in this. When you talk about mostly independent study with this kind of stuff, I was also like potentially, and then you talked about international mentors. I was sort of assuming that that kind of hints that we lack certain resources locally. But anyway, I'll let you answer that for me. But I was curious, how was it entering the scene, and how does one go about starting up sorry, I forgot the exact words you used, but I'll just say a exploration startup in the Philippines. What resources are there for them, and how would they go about it?
Well, Pawi, to tell you frankly, this is a very capital intensive enterprise to start. So, and at the same time, aside from the capital that is needed to, build the entire organization, you also need a lot of, emotional stamina and probably balls
Mm.
to to withstand
Yeah.
all the pressures, and at the same time the demanding schedules, and at the same time the um, um, probably yeah, to be honest, to answer your question, we really lack expertise here in the Philippines, primarily in the rocket development side. So that's the reason why it took us a lot of time, or we had a lot of delays, because we also need to make sure that we have proper people on board to talk about the journey, to talk about the technicalities, to advise us on the business side of things, on how we should operate as an organization, what projects to take, things like that. So um, it is really probably intoxicating,
Mm.
but like what my mentors will always say to me, you are the only person that can do that for now. So
Yeah.
you cannot afford to, settle. You cannot afford to give up. You need to pursue and pursue and pursue, and continuously prove to yourself that you can do it.
Hmm.
So here in the Philippines, we have talents, primarily in engineering, but they don't have the proper expertise to build, or to melt or to craft a fully functioning rocket. So even though they have these foundational knowledge, we still need to have guidance from abroad because they have the proper, knowledge. They have the proper pathway that they took. So so instead of relying to government efforts, we decided to fill in the gaps. We decided to work with the Metro Manila Development Authority, considering that waste is the primary source of our rocket fuel. So if
Mm-hmm,
we will
mm-hmm.
not be helping the government agencies to solve this, waste problems, we will not be able to solve also the demand for the huge demand for the raw materials that will be used for the rocket development.
I see. I see.
So considering the current head count inside the team is around 30 people.
Oh,
So it is actually not enough to have that number of people, considering the number of projects that we are taking, the number of auxiliary parts that we have here in OrbitX, and we need to buy a land, we need to do
yeah.
the plumbing, we need to fabricate the machine, we need to fabricate the tanks, so we need to build a facility, things like that. So it is
Wow.
really exhausting. So yeah,
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you hear that? It's impossible, guys. Just give up. No, I'm just playing. No, but that's wow. My main takeaway from that, right, is because we're constantly talking about two seemingly disparate things, which is the rocket engineering and the renewable energy. But it looks like when you take rocket engineering into the Philippine context, the marriage is inevitable because we need to we cannot generate more waste in this country. We can't afford to do that, right? Given the state of the Philippine environment. So that was my main takeaway from that. I want to take this opportunity to say thanks to some people who sent over some diamonds on Kumu. Woohoo! You're popular, Dexter. Shout out to Leroy Almeda and also two of our friends and previous guest, Christopher Starr. Ooh, if you don't know Christopher Starr yet, take this as your networking opportunity. Christopher works with a lot of startups here in the Philippines. Also, Kyla Rell. Hello, Kyla. But awesome. Okay, we're gonna go right back into it. Again, reminding everyone, you can send over your own questions as well. I certainly will. Here's a quick fire question for you. One sentence answer, whatever. But given what you said about the fact that we have these talents who lack the expertise. Um, so does it not require a genius? Does rocket science, like space rocket engineering, not require a genius, Dexter?
um, well, to be honest, it will always require um, being a genius, I think. But I cannot consider
Mm,
myself as a genius. I'm just,
right.
the facilitator of different people. I'm the facilitator of talents, and also I make sure that the business is running and operating in its maximum potential. So
Mm,
that's the most common problem in a heavy industry organization. You cannot afford to spend into capital that depreciates. You need to ensure that you have a healthy cash flow. So instead of investing into depreciating capitals, you need also
mm.
to ensure that you're investing into capital or assets that will actually provide you cash flow. So that's the
Yeah,
reason why we are
amazing.
engaged into other sectors as well.
Okay. And hold on, I'm wondering. Okay, no, I'm not gonna delve into that yet. So great. I guess also in short, it requires more of a leader, right?
Yes.
Um. So okay. Um. You know what? Actually, let's dig into it since you mentioned it. So, there are three categories so far that seem to fall under OrbitX's operation. We already mentioned renewables. We mentioned obviously space and launching rockets into space, but we also talked about blockchain and NFTs. So altogether, they make up the OrbitX Megaverse. I think that was on your
Yeah,
website.
yeah, yeah,
I like nabbed that one. I'm like, yes, I'm gonna use that
yes.
on the show. But yeah, why don't you? Some people are gonna listen to this in purely podcast form. So why don't you orally try to map out how these different innovations line up and form this, which you said, like this sustainable business model for OrbitX.
Well, even before the Facebook or Meta introduced the concept of metaverse, since 2019 when I started the organization, I I embraced the concept of having a circular business model wherein everything inside or every business inside the organization will work seamlessly with one another. So the primary reason this is actually both an art and science, I think. Um, um,
Love it.
yes, I do not know if this will work to other organizations, but for now, I can observe that this is working very, very well in Orbitex. So the reason why we are engaged in renewables is that we would like to reduce the um, launch cost of space launch. So we would like to diminish by probably 10 to 20% of the launch cost in order for us to cater into more industries, for example, the telecommunication sector, and
Mm,
the internet
right.
startups that we have. Because I believe personally, in order for us to create more industries, we need to make sure that the foundational industries or the hard industries should be built in order for other technologies to be built on top of it.
Got it.
So,
Yeah.
and also, it is ideal for us to go into renewables, considering that we have a waste problem, especially here in Metro Manila. So we need to address that as well, and we cannot afford to be considered as you know uh, every space launch emits a ton of carbon emissions to the atmosphere. And in order for us to eliminate a factor of that, we need to ensure that we are using the renewable side of you know um, the thing, or the engineering side of it. We need to ensure that we're going sustainable, we are maintaining the green part of it. And the reason why we are engaged into the blockchain space is that together with our partner from proofsys.io, we are planning to launch a space node using Haribon. So that's the reason why we
Mm.
are exploring, different
Can we
applications.
unpack that? So the node, how does the node connect to the blockchain technology?
Well, similar to any other satellite. So, it is like a Starlink, but on steroids, but primarily for the application of blockchain. So,
I see.
yes. So we're planning to do that, and hopefully we can do that as first of probably first payload of Haribon, hopefully.
Hmm.
Um, but we are trying to ensure that um, everything should be prepared properly in order for us to attain that goal. So
Hmm.
currently, what we're doing is that we are exploring different applications inside the blockchain
I
technology.
see. I
So yeah,
see.
including the upcoming. Can I plug it?
Yeah. This is your show, bro. Let's go. Plug
Yes,
it in.
we have an upcoming NFT project. The
Nice.
whitelisting will end on December 20. We call
Yeah.
it Aliens of Malaya. So each alien,
Aliens
by
of
the
Malaya.
way, we will plant one tree, and also we will collect
Oh, brilliant.
a waste or water waste. So we will
Yeah.
start planting trees next week at Gulugud Baboy in Anilao, Batangas, together
Batangas. Yeah.
with the local Department of Environment and Natural Resources there. So
Huh.
it is very, very exciting. So yeah,
Yeah. No, that's super interesting. It looks like you know um a little bit of devil's advocate here, but it looks like with each of your technological. I mean, they're all technological, but let's say like each of your like big endeavors, you simultaneously have to find a way to offset kind of like the increased carbon footprint. It's which seems like it's like a negative. It's like neutralizing your progress, but it looks like you're like leveraging, so both of them work as assets. I feel like with this you talked about future blockchain applications when you launch the node, but right now your use of NFTs, the release of Aliens of Malaya, I assume will be a way for you to perhaps raise capital. Is that one of the main moves as well?
Oh yes, actually, not just a capital, but this is considered as probably a product because um, it is my dream to create a new type of Ayala conglomerate. So that's my
Mm.
original dream. Wherein, if you can observe, since 1834, Ayala has been engaged into a lot of industries. Then they decided to have separate CEOs. So that's my primary objective. So as the core leader or the business person inside the organization, I need to ensure that we are preparing to, that goal of having a couple of CEOs under the OrbitX chain. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm more than willing to, shell out my stress or give away my stress to other
Yeah, let's see if
people. So
anyone's willing to take on that stress. But
yeah, someday,
yeah.
someday, I hope that would happen.
um, by the way, we're taking in CEO applications right now over Kumu, so please donate many VGs for Dexter to take a look at your resume. That's partially a joke, but send over some diamonds if you can. Okay, so Dexter, we talked specifically a lot about Orbit X and your experiences. I want to go macro again into the larger landscape. Who You don't need to give specifics, but maybe like what kind of companies or like the different kind of players in this, Filipino rocket industry or institutions, even you did mention like universities, and then maybe if you want, you can also go regionally, like what are the businesses in this ecosystem, and how have they approached space travel up until this point?
Well, here in the Philippines, as far as what I know, we are the first player commercially. But we have
Mm,
Holy Angel University. We have interns from that university, by the way. Very very wonderful university. They reached the Carman line probably 2 years back.
mm.
So
Sorry,
yeah, we
sorry, what does that mean?
100 kilometers above sea level.
Oh,
So
wow.
they reached there. That's actually a solid rocket. So what we're building is a renewable liquid rocket one. So which is more technical. So
I see.
we also have Rizal Technological University,
Yeah.
and regionally we have a lot of players. But the good thing is, um, here in the aerospace industry, it is more about collaboration rather than
Yeah.
competition,
Yeah.
because we all believe as industry players that space is, a playing ground for all nations. So we are really glad that, for example, we met the NASA attaché in Tokyo, Garvey McIntosh.
Oh,
Yes,
brilliant.
as way back, I think July this year, and
Yeah.
we are included as one of probably the most anticipated players in Asia Pacific region.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's exciting. I want to talk more about that, actually, that global that more global outlook that we mentioned earlier with your international mentors and such. How did you come across them? I also saw on your Facebook page, you've won certain awards as well. Just like tell our audience how that scene even looks. It seems to be like a, well, it's an industry, but it's also like a subculture. Like if you're a fan of this stuff, like what does it look like? What are the big
yes.
awards, and like what are the big programs and such? Yeah.
Well, primarily in the space industry, we have a lot of other industries down there. So we have the space launch business where OrbitX exists.
Okay.
We also have the satellite makers. So, to be honest, by the way, I recently signed an agreement together with a Russian satellite maker, and hopefully that would be our first paying client.
That you'll attach
Yeah, yes,
to your rocket.
yes.
Interesting. Congrats.
And that would be really, really amazing if we already finalize that deal. But yeah, going back, we have a lot of things that are going on here in the industry. We have other methods of building a rocket. Most of the players in Southeast Asia or the Asia Pacific are focusing on the development of solid rockets. So we are the first to consider this hard path. So
Okay.
I'm actually trying to convince my engineering team to probably mitigate the risk or
Yeah.
probably consider a smaller version or a solid rocket.
Sorry, you
But
said earlier you said that your project is a liquid rocket.
yes, renewable liquid rockets. So
Okay.
basically, one of my engineers, Engineer Andre Antiporta, discovered way back during his university years a machine that can convert plastics to
Mm.
fuel. So we considered
Wow.
him and onboarded the project. So that's the reason why we are
Right.
scaling that up, and we call that fuel RP2 from RP1, the rocket grade kerosene being used by the industry. So RP2,
Okay.
considering that we are building a renewable rocket fuel. So
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, like what I told you, I tried to convince my engineering team to focus into probably solid rockets or probably intercontinental ballistic missiles for the Department of
Mm.
National Defense. But
Hmm.
my chief engineer insisted that their efforts will be wasted, or the backtracking or the delays would be
Mm.
significant. So I trusted them, and I told them that okay, go ahead with your plan. I
Yeah.
trust you. So yeah.
So this is the more innovative route we're taking,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Is that what
definitely.
we're getting at? Get it. Got it. Actually, that's a good segue. We do have a question from the audience. Rodilio Tolibas. He's asking, do rocket fuel materials are they available here in the country? I guess the more conventional, because you're talking about unconventional rocket materials like
Yes.
LJ, but yes.
Well, we have medicine grade or medical grade chemical gas. So, for example, oxygen we can, um, buy from suppliers here locally. But for other chemicals used for the rocket development, and also the machineries to store these highly explosive chemicals, we need to import machineries and also the chemicals that we will use.
Yeah.
So, and it is really, really hard to get permission from the government. And we are really grateful to the Department of Trade and Industry for issuing us um, a certification that allowed us to, do this crazy
Wow.
stuff. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Wow. This is. I still have a lot to learn, but we do only have an hour. But I still have a couple of questions. Um, I was curious, going back to the Haribon. Um, where are we now in the Haribon SLS development stage? And also, why don't you tell our audience, like, what's a day like for your team developing this? Like, what are you actually doing with it?
Well, um, currently we are more focused into design iterations. So we did a lot of prototyping early this year. And upon talking to Safran France, which is one of the suppliers of SpaceX and responsible for the reusable rockets of SpaceX, um, we decided to backtrack a little, to be honest, because a small data gathering system that is like this size will cost us 69,000 euros. And
Wow.
if that thing blew up it can
Mm.
be a huge loss to the organization. So we decided to ensure that we are, you know, reutilizing the resources that we have in order for us to afford the significant
Yeah.
losses that we will undergo.
Yeah.
So in the overall scale, I think we are at the probably 2 to 10% of the entire development of the rocket.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it is really hard, but um, it is our target to probably launch a small scale Haribon, which we will call Pepe's bicycle. So we will call that Pepe's bicycle. Um, Probably late next year or the following year.
Wow,
So
that's
hopefully
I
we
mean
can
that's
do
pretty
that.
soon. Okay. Wow.
Hopefully,
How
hopefully.
big is a small rocket like that?
Well, the original rocket designed by
Yeah.
the engineering team is 27 meters high.
Okay.
So for the smaller version, we don't have the final design yet because um, from before we decided to concede before doing the engine stuff or our own engine because we decided to create our own. Um, we actually want to buy an engine from Russia. So that's
Yeah.
the original plan. But upon a couple of consultations because of some probably design flaws with regards to the Haribon, Engineer Roy Siron told me that, sir, we need to try to create our own rocket engine.
Wow.
So I told him, okay, let's go that way. Then we started prototyping a couple of parts, designing a couple of parts, testing a couple of parts. Then we are honored to be working with Safran Group of France,
Yeah.
which, like what I told you, is the key supplier of SpaceX.
Mhm.
So to be honest, it is normal for the entire aerospace industry to have delays, considering that here in the Philippines, we do not have, especially in the Philippines, we do not have um, a clear pathway or a roadmap to take.
Yeah.
So we need to
You're
understand that.
trailblazing.
Yes, we
Yeah.
need to understand that.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I guess it's worth asking because you hinted at it earlier, but on the note of delays and hindrances, how has the pandemic hindered your operation, and how have you adapted to its challenges?
Well, it's been really, really tough for us, especially as a team, because we decided to cut costs. We decided to reduce our productivity by approximately 50 to 75%. And
Wow.
we just recovered the entire operation early this year. So we're actually a little delayed compared to our original timeline. So yeah, hopefully we
That's not
can
too bad.
cope up. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's not too bad, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, best of luck on that. I do want to we're wrapping up really nicely. I do want to talk about the future. Um well, actually, you mentioned a few. So just in case you haven't mentioned any, I just wanted to know what is the future looking like? Where is this all going? Say you successfully launch Arbon SLS. What are the applications of this? What are the possibilities, and how can this industry and multiple industries in the Philippines grow as a result of your trailblazing work?
Well, first of all, I'm looking forward for that to happen because I would like to rest for a bit. Uh, Second,
So increase of sleep. Yes.
yes.
Okay. More sleep for
Second,
Dexter.
I am really optimistic about the future, considering that we really need that as a country. First, first reason is that we have a lot of concerns in the West Philippine Sea that should be addressed and can
Mm,
be addressed only through the help of space technology.
mm.
Second reason, we can improve our telecommunications and other emergency response system
Amen.
once we have space access. So
Yes.
it is kind of ambitious, but to be honest, the entire benefit of having space access and also having these advanced technologies would benefit us big time as a
Hmm.
developing country. So, for
Mhm.
example, we have a lot of calamities every year. So, if we
Mm.
have space
Mhm.
access, we would not need to rely much into foreign data. So we
Wow.
have
You're
better.
right.
We can create laws, regulations, bills in the Congress that would really make sense, considering that we have enough data from space. So
Amazing.
things like that. And
Wow.
also, the last thing is that we can improve our military operations, like what I said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, even just yeah, like intelligence alone. I mean, the applications seem endless, and I think again, megaverses was an apt word to use earlier. I did have a comment on that, but anyway, we'll save it for later. Um, Before we go into our ending segment, you shared a lot of wisdom with us. For all of our listeners out there who are aspiring space travelers or dreamers like you and your team, what last bits of advice would you give them?
First, you need to have a lot of resilience. Second, you need to have a lot of curiosity. Third, you need to become creative, because unlike other startups that are more focused into a particular product, here in the space industry, you can basically diversify, because you are creating the highest form of engineering. So you can
Wow.
explore other technologies that will sustain the organization as long as it is attached to your original goal. So that's the
Yeah.
idea behind it. And also, you need to listen and stay curious and connect to people. That's very, very important.
Yeah.
Because if you will just trust yourself that you can do it alone without any other people behind you, you will basically fail. So you
Hmm.
need to understand also that, you do not have the monopoly to knowledge. So you need to have
Mm.
knowledge and also wisdom. So that's all.
Brilliant, brilliant. I love it. Again, earlier, like we said, doesn't necessarily take a quote unquote genius, but more so a leader, right? And
Yeah.
tying it even back to our overall theme of requiring an ecosystem, right? So everyone seems to have their own part to play. Very excited about this. Best of luck, Dexter and Orbit X. Super pumped, super pumped. Hopefully, we'll have you back on Rappler in the future. Anyway, we're not gonna let you go just yet. We're gonna wrap things up now, as we always do with our play of the week. We talked a lot about work and science. Now let's talk about play and whatever else you got. Any fun activities or recommendations for our listeners to unwind from the busyness of business? What you got?
Probably going to gym.
Going to
Going
the
to gym
gym.
and yes, going to
Brilliant.
the gym and hitting the punching bag. So
Oh,
that's really beneficial for me, because punching releases a lot of stress.
yeah.
So yeah, and
Punching
also
bags,
reading
right?
books.
Not people, right? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
We only get superheroes, not supervillains. But anyway,
Yes,
keep
yes.
on, keep on going.
But I can do that. Joke. Just kidding.
Amazing. Yeah, that's great. So I guess things have opened up enough that you're able to return to that. I'm sure it was more difficult during the more lockdown periods now.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
Okay. Well, for my play of the week, mine is actually pretty similar. It's a physical activity, and it is actually a sport right now. I'm talking
Hmm.
about one of my passions that for those five people who actually follow this show, you might recall that I am kind of a competitive pro level breakdancer or b-boy. We're
Yeah.
now in yeah. I talk about it a lot on the show, but once in every play of the weeks, I give an update on the developments on our road to, or rather the sports road to the 2024 Paris Olympics. So again, speaking of France, last week they just hosted the World Dance Sport Federation Championships in France, which is basically a huge landmark for the road to Paris 2024. It was kind of a prototype, actually, Dexter, if you will, to see more or less how Olympic level breakdancing would play out.
Would work out.
The champion from the male side, the B boys, Victor from the U.S. who's very well regarded, and Japan won for the females, Ayumi. And the brilliant thing is, by the way, Victor is I think at this point he might even be younger than you, Dexter. He's probably in his early 20s, and
Mm-hmm.
Ayumi is older than me, and I think she's even in her 40s. So that's the brilliance of breakdancing going to, or breaking, we call it breaking, going into the Olympics. Especially at this early stage, we don't really have those age brackets, especially as an art form. Like you mentioned, Dexter, even in your field being an art, it opens the possibilities to all sorts of people getting in on the Olympic fund. So anyway, that's my play of the week. It was really fun to watch, and super excited for the rise of Team Philippines. Let's go. Anyway,
Let's go.
that's it, Dexter. Thanks so much. Any last plugs? Remind people how they can keep up with you and OrbitX.
Well, again, you can visit our webpage, www.orbitalexploration.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn, also on Facebook. Also, we have an upcoming launch of our NFTs, Aliens of Malaya. Each alien that you will adapt, we will plant a tree. So it will be
Woo!
really, really helpful. Yeah. Last
Great.
last piece of last words. Stay
Yes.
curious and stay positive.
Boom, boom, brilliant! It's been such a pleasure, Dexter. Reminding everyone, you can also follow your host at Powie Fiction. Thanks to Rappler's production team and our producer Marga, our community team, and our social media manager Fia, and our creatives team. Thank you out there for watching and listening. If you haven't already, please follow Rappler on all platforms. You can catch us on Kumu by following Rappler.com, and you can follow the Hustle Inside the Industry podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. We bring you a new episode every Monday so you can start your week with a little motivation. Bye. Thanks, Dexter.
Bye.